So Scott, you were telling me about the situation at UC and them eliminating the need for SATs and ACT. I do know that they are planning to kind of combine these tests by 2025, and they said if they can't, then they're just going to drop it altogether. I don't know what all do you know on that?
Well, what I do know is that the students, basically as a group, a kind of a class action lawsuit, filed against the University of California on the basis of that SAT and ACT scores for the purpose of admissions were inherently racist, and using the same trope as people of low income or people of color don't have access to the education that it takes to pass these tests in order to get into college. And so they basically won. University filed an appeal, and saying it would do kind of a settlement, provide like certainty for their families, counselors in high schools and stuff like that for people. This also includes people with disabilities and who need accommodations. And they rejected the appeal. So basically, there is what I can see is that they don't plan on having. They said something about developing a separate test that would be more accommodating, but that's assuming that these people have an inherent disability for testing, period. And while I don't like standardized testing, and I did not try to get a fantastic score on any of mine, it didn't stop me by any means getting into a university. This kind of seems to me like a little bit elitist when it comes to, well, we deserve to go to the best and most expensive university. There's no way I could have afforded to go to that kind of university, and it doesn't disparage my compliments or my accomplishments, but it just it says they're quoted in basically saying, as the lawyers representing the students' lawsuit, that the settlement ensures that the university will not revert to its planned use of the SAT and ACT, which its own regents have admitted are racist metrics. And while, like I said, I don't like standardized testing, it's a continuing education, and you do need people that are interested in continuing a process, or at least a pattern of being interested in education and self-betterment. And the only way to measure those things are by scores and metrics. And I'm not going to damn anybody that worked their butt off to get great grades. I mean, those people deserve to get into the best schools and programs that even may be limited to only a certain number of students. I mean, do I get mad at Indian and Asian students for making up a large portion of MIT?
Yes, you do.
No, I want wonderful things to come out of MIT. I want those people to get in. I want them to develop amazing things, and I want to reap the benefits of that
I mean, they are
technology.
just MIT, so I mean, they're just
Yeah, well,
engineers.
MIT, I mean, MIT is like God, when it comes to tech stuff. But I mean, using that same, but see, that's where I say it's kind of an elitist thing to say, well, anybody should be able to get into some of these places. No, I don't want just anybody to be able to get into limited programs. I want the best to get into those things. I want the best football players. I want the best, when it comes to entertainment. I want the best comedians in front of me to occupy my time where I need a laugh. And I think once you lower the bars in some ways, on the basis of, well, it's on a racial basis. It's not even, it's even worse than kind of reverse discrimination. It's basically saying that no matter how good you did in school and your grades and how hard you worked, it's not going to benefit you if this is the university you want to go to. So I think it's negative for the university overall. Its programs are going to suffer.
See, now that's weird because I have a completely different take from it. Um, I actually feel that this, and I know that you had brought up where this came from and how this whole thing came about, that it was students who said it was like racially motivated and whatever. I actually was, when I first heard about this, I thought, oh, this is a way that they can get around the bribing, and having to falsify SAT and ACT test scores to get like your really rich kids into schools. Remember that there was a whole like fallout with a ton of these like really
And
wealthy
right,
parents and
it was a trainer and a coach that exposed the fact that some of these actors and rich people
and there was a
kind of
ton. I
had
mean,
it.
just so
And
many
I'm
of them.
not saying that has, but
And
see,
that
it's
was,
only
I thought, almost. Sorry, I was gonna say, I thought that was
no.
almost completely like falsifying SAT and ACT test scores, and I thought that was the angle that they were working in on.
Yeah, but don't think that's not. I don't think it's a common practice because 99% of people are going in there and doing the right thing. It was only a tiny percentage, and I would say that that kind of cheating, of course, which is completely evil, you don't even need to cheat now. You can cheat on a completely different level, and that's basically saying the victim card. Who's the victim of the most discrimination and the biggest disability, and the you know what I mean? And you just that's the victim card. Whoever
I
gets
suppose.
in.
I suppose.
Well, yeah, I
I
need.
personally don't
I mean,
have that.
my white privilege card is doesn't get me in anywhere, and it's like I'm just saying that those things. I don't care what the race of the student is. I want the best students to get when it comes to limited programs to get in on the basis of their merit and their education and their test scores, because those are the people who are going to make wonderful things for me. I'm not one of those people. I
Right.
didn't have
No,
the
I
greatest.
think you're taking way too much into SAT score. I mean, because that's not the be all end all at your
Right. Well,
entry.
we don't know what they're going to
I
replace
mean,
the
and,
admissions requirement with, and that's the real important part that's still up in the air.
I mean, because it is far more than that, and you can still easily just fail out of classes. Like, I know myself, like, I did really, really well at the SATs, and I didn't try at all. So your idea of the best and brightest, I disagree with. Because again, dude, I'm not even kidding. I fell asleep 3 times in the SATs.
I'm not
Like,
saying they're
I
ultimately
was
difficult, but
like,
you
there
also
was
didn't
no.
pursue a university track that was like you wanted to go to this university because there's still a money factor there. And while I do think there should be subsidies for people who can't afford it for those universities, I think those subsidies should be afforded to people who, have some history of, of being able to perform those kind of academics at a high level. So, if you had wanted to and you couldn't afford it, I would have wanted you to go just because and subsidize your education.
Right. I mean, again, I think that this is a situation too. Like, I think you had pointed out where it was coming from the elitists, the richer people who feel like they should have the right to go wherever they want. And I actually agree with you in that, especially with California. Something I didn't know about California is that you don't get your housing covered, like with student loans or with grants or anything like that. You actually don't get any of that paid for. And I learned this through a show called Last Chance U. Anyone should check it out. It's pretty good, but it follows college football players. And there was about 3 of them who were homeless. They lived in their car. Like they were going to college. They had, jobs and whatever, but they had zero money for housing. And so they were just homeless. Like young kids on a college football team, winning, doing good stuff, but absolutely homeless. And this is a really common problem with college kids in California. And that's why I'm saying, like, I don't believe this did come. Because I think if the downtrodden, if you will, if they were to fight any sort of thing in the college system, it would be that. Like they would care far less more about the ACT, SATs, and far more about, you know, room and board and actually having a
Yeah,
place to
I mean,
live.
I agree. I don't. I think this is this whole. Who knows how many students were supposedly behind this consortium of lawsuits? It's probably rich white liberals who got this idea, and there's probably zero people of color even involved in it. It just seems like, and universities have their tuition rates are also something Like I previously mentioned, automobiles being much more expensive than basic
Oh
inflation,
God, yes.
that have increased in price. And the real issue with that is that your degrees mean much less in the workplace than they ever had. You go back to the 50s, and my God, if you had a college degree, you could just walk into just a nice paying job with a pension, and by the time you died in, 2010, you probably had $2 million in your 401k kind of stuff. But nowadays, there are even places like Google and even Tesla and other places. They don't even require a college degree. They do some kind of evaluation of you on site with your abilities. Like, what are you good at? Show me, and that's it. Because if you can do it,
Well,
then
depending on
what's
what
the
job
purpose?
you have, like you wouldn't hire
Well,
an
right. You
accountant
don't want an
that
engineer.
didn't have a like.
there are
I'm
there are
actually
some programs.
I'm actually questioning what positions they would have, but yeah, I mean, um, you're right to an extent as far as like, yeah, a high school degree means absolutely nothing.
Nothing.
Um, and I know people who, you were talking about just quickly. I just thought I'd bring this up. The average house, by the way, when our parents were around the time when our parents were coming around, about 12 to $14,000, which is insane. So, like, think about that with the college degree making you a lot of
You mean when
money.
our parents were like little kids?
No, like when they were in buying houses, the market on average
Oh,
was about 14 to like $20,000.
yeah. I
Now,
mean,
granted,
I
it might
remember.
have been different with your family because you're a little bit older
Well,
than I am, but
yeah, but I didn't. Right. So I mean, I could. Well, no, I'm saying it was much higher. I mean, if you go back to the 50s, let's just say the price of a. I think when I was well, so we're talking over 40 years ago. A price of a lower middle class home in a not so great area, because I remember my first home my parents bought. It was $23,000, and I think it was, you know, they moved out of it after a few years, but that was in like 1970. Let's see, if I was five,
yeah, I mean,
1981, 1980. So I mean,
20 some thousand, that's great.
yeah, but that was a small, like one or two bedroom house on the not so great side of town. Like my parents were poor, so I think it was the houses have been a lot. They've cost a lot more, but I mean, via inflation,
Do you
they
know what?
even though
Okay, throwing this out. Do you know what the average price for a house now is
it is that nationwide or for state,
nationwide?
I would say probably 450,000.
Well, then, okay, now that looks crazy, but 226,000 for an average.
226, and that's going to vary huge. You're talking the difference between a house in California being like, an average of $650,000-$700,000 versus a house in nowhere, Kansas that still sells for $80,000, and they're the same home.
Yeah, I mean, yes and no. Like we've been looking for a house, so I can tell you 80,000 is a really good deal. The average price of a house in Kansas right now is currently 100 and okay, the average is 150,000 for a
Yeah, that sounds right.
for a
150, 160.
two bedroom house.
Yeah, like 2,500 square feet kind of thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that makes sense. I mean, you know, uh, and that's actually pretty high because the housing market's so good, just like the used car market. But either way, I think that what the benefit from the monetary benefit from the cost of education is horrible. Kids are way overpaying, and so it's not that I really think that University of California is like the most awesomest place to go. It's that I think by doing that, um, that not that they should be devalued because they are, because these degree plans are also being the result of these degree plans is being devalued overall university wide. So I'm not really upset about it. It's just because I hate standardized testing. It's just weird to see that being the result of a group of students, or so they say, group of parents that hired a law firm based on the fact that this testing is racist.
I think that's,
Because
no, and what I was kind of, I guess, pointing to, and by the way, 1980 average house price in Kansas was 17,500, um,
yeah,
going up to 150. So I just mean, like, you really do need a college education. And, but the thing I think that you pointed out perfect there was group of parents who hired a law firm to sue the school. Well, that's not going to be your downtrodden. That's not going to be your, you know what I'm saying? Like, that's obviously the elite class who, probably, little Timmy's kind of dumb, and they want little Timmy to go to UC Berkeley, and, well, how can we make this right? Well, that I know. Let's say it's because he's not Mexican, or that he needs to, they're not letting Mexicans in. So let's, let's jump on that bandwagon. Or maybe he is Mexican, who knows? And let's say that's the problem. But you're right. I think, yeah, it's definitely like an elitist problem brought on by the elites. And I don't know. I guess I'm kind of with you in the fact too that, like, they
and I
don't
think
really
that
care.
if you are somebody who probably couldn't afford, or you should never take out student loans that will make you a debtor for the next 50 years. And some of those places require unbelievable money to go to, and people are doing it and then realizing, wait a minute, I'm still having a hard time getting a job with this
Yeah.
degree. They promised me I would just jump into some wonderful paying job, and now I can't afford my student loan deferment.
And do you
And
know why
like,
you can't declare bankruptcy on it?
because the feds own your money.
What, do you know who made it impossible?
uh, Calvin Coolidge.
No, much more recent, more prominent
Are,
right now.
are we
Okay, let me throw this. Who can you say
the Obama administration?
who stopped it from being a bankruptcy, allowed to be declared in bankruptcy, and who pushed for it to be allowed in bankruptcy? There was this fight between these two individuals. They're pretty prominent right now.
I just want you to tell me.
All right. So Elizabeth Warren actually pushed for it to be admissible in bankruptcy. She thought that it was too big of a burden to carry around for some people, and it should be something you could declare bankruptcy on. President now President Joe Biden, uh, and he pushed back on her in the early 2000s and said, "Nope, you signed into this negotiation, and you should."
Doesn't that just figure
Right?
so much with
Yeah.
Biden's history and the credit card companies? I mean, could that be more obvious?
Exactly. Right. No, it's pretty crazy.
God,
Anyway, we will be
it's almost like
back.
we could have guessed that one before it ever happened.
Right? We're going to talk about something we didn't mention that we were going to talk about. We're going to talk about, neo-feminism destroying culture, media, TV. There's a whole article written up, um, that was taken from the Dallas Gazette that I thought I'd bring up. I don't even know if this is a printed publication anymore. I found it online, and I just thought it was an interesting topic, and so we are going to discuss that. And then Scott is going to tell us about the fact that, aliens are already here and
Space,
potentially living in your attic. We will discuss that further.
space.